So I'm going to take a little bit international perspective to the issue of sustainable financing. And I'm going to focus on the green bond principles this time around, the involvement of IFC, the history of it. We will drop a link where you can get a pre-talk, let's say a small 5-10 minutes talk, I think, that was done about the history of the green bond. So I will dive in straight now into defining the green bond, though I had defined it earlier, and I had mentioned that there are so many definitions of the green bond, but I will take this as published by the IFC in 2019, which says that a green bond is defined in the green bond principles, GBP. I'll be using this terminology GBP as we go on, which is green bond principle. It's defined, the green bond is defined as any type of bond instrument where the proceeds will be exclusively applied to finance or refinance in part or in full new or existing eligible green projects, and which are aligned with the 4 core components of the green bond principle. Remember, I had taken us through the 4 core components of the green bond principle. So in other words, the green bonds are labeled bonds or fixed income financial instruments that finance environmental and sustainable development projects at all levels. It could be at state levels, it could be at a regional level, but the bottom line is that the instruments are meant to finance environmental and sustainable development projects, including even the SDG projects, as the case may be. It is also important for me to state that a single financial instrument or one of the financial instruments that could help to mobilize capital and significant climate action and sustainable development in Africa is the issuance of the green bond. And there is a growing consensus right now amongst nations, local within the continent and international finance institutions, and in fact, relevant stakeholders at large, that green bond or green financing or sustainable financing should be a priority in Africa. This is important, and I think it should be seen as such. So this brings us to the presentation for today, which has to do with the framework for impact reporting. In my previous talk, we had discussed why and how the impact reporting framework was demanded in order to have accountability of the finances, how it is doing or how it is not doing, and so that some measures can be put in place. And if there are no indicators for any line of action, program, or project, it will be said that there is no progress tracking. So that is why the framework for impact reporting in 2020 was launched. So we will be using the green the framework for impact reporting as regards the green bond principles, which is the subject matter. And it is the handbook that we are going to be using. I will mention briefly some content in the handbook so that we can better understand how to go about it. And we want to give some credit to the team that did the compilation of the framework for impact reporting, which comprises of the EBRB, the International Finance Corporation, the World Bank, NIB, KFW, and the EIB. Special thanks to the Technical Working Group for the very detailed work that drove the preparation of the documents, as well as to the other multilateral development banks, including the African Development Bank, that published the Harmonized framework for impact reporting, and so many other international financial institutions, IFIs, that also continuously published updated versions of the handbook, which we are now using as a guide for advisory services, for also capacity building, and so on and so forth. So a special thanks to the Technical Working Group. So this handbook had actually captured core principles and recommendations for reporting the impact of green financing, or if you like, sustainable financing across different specific sectors. And for the purpose of this presentation, we would be taking only one sector, but the handbook has detailed sector-specific guidance, reporting metrics that should be used, and we have the core indicators for each of the sectors. For instance, the energy efficiency sector, the sustainable water and waste management, wastewater management sector was also captured as one of the specific sectors. Clean transportation sector, green buildings, and renewable energy, of course, and also biodiversity was captured in the impact reporting framework. So we have about 7 sectors that have been captured in the impact reporting framework, but for the purpose of this few minutes, I will be reviewing the clean transportation sector. We have the guidance, we have the core indicators, we have some sustainability indicators that should be of interest to us in this presentation. And so I will just run through it very quickly and take a few questions if there are, and then we proceed. So the indicators that was focused on for the clean transportation impact reporting procedures as GBP is concerned, as the Green Bond Principle is concerned, is to illustrate the environmental and sustainability benefits of projects relating to clean transportation, which are recognized by the principle for green projects. It should be under one of the 10 broad categories of eligible green projects in the transport section, which includes electric, hybrid, public, rail, non-motorized, multimodal transportation, infrastructure for clean energy vehicles, and then reduction of harmful emissions. The principle also encourages that we provide qualitative and quantitative information in relation to clean transport projects that are ongoing or that are proposed, either way, whether they are focused on reducing pollution or they are focused on improved use of resources in the sector. Either way, it encourages that both qualitative and quantitative information be provided. The qualitative information is encouraged to provide a meaningful contextual or contextualization of the baseline situation and the improvement as a result of the project. So if there are improvements over time, it could be over a period of 5 years or over a period of 10 years. It could even be biannually. So once the baseline is established, as this is the baseline situation, and this is the improvements we have been able to achieve after 6 months, or after a year, or after 2-3 years, in that format. which is highly encouraged in the principle and even in the impact reporting framework. And in general, for clean transportation projects, this information may be very, very useful and meaningful when it covers the entire life cycle of the project, from commissioning to decommissioning, or if it did not cover the commissioning, perhaps is already an ongoing project that already has some impacts that have been recognized. But from wherever point that the intervention was received, all the way to the decommissioning of vehicles, as well as the local and original context in which the project is undertaken, have to be provided. In evaluating the benefits, which is the environmental and sustainability benefits of clean transport projects, it will also be useful for reference to be made to sustainable transport hierarchy. I would share a link for that hierarchy in this presentation so you can take a look at it, because in any qualitative reporting of transport strategy, this hierarchy is of utmost importance. It seeks to prioritize those activities that are optimal in managing resources and also protecting the environment by and large. So in general, the green transport activities are categorized majorly into three different definitions in its broader form, which has to do with the general knowledge that we have about anything green, which is avoid or reduce, shift or maintain, and then improve. We have the 3 R's that we have been using, but this is a little bit a shift. So avoid, reduce in this context is any operation that avoids the need to travel, because we're talking about the clean transportation. So we can avoid the need to travel or reduce the length of travel, including through integrated land use planning and transport demand management. Then we look at the second activity, which is shift and maintain. Any operation that moves people to a more sustainable and less polluting means of transportation is encouraged and is one of the activities covered under the clean transportation, which can include walking. I remember, anytime I travel out of Africa, I see that people do a lot of walking in the developed economies, more than we do. In Africa, you have to consciously park your car to say, okay, I want to walk. But in most of the developed economies like the UK, walking is a lifestyle for almost every level of human being, workers, managers, business owners, everybody walks. So this is a shift. This is a shift, and this is an activity that is encouraged under the clean transportation activity. It could be cycling also. Cycling in the developed economies too is highly encouraged, and I was in the US once, and at a stop junction, I think the cycling, the bicycles I saw could be like over 200 bicycles, everybody cycling. That is the shift that the clean transportation activity is encouraging in a way. And it could be trains, trams, and the ferries. I'm particularly happy about how trams are replacing buses in some countries, and it can be emulated also in Africa. Let's have a lot of trams, a lot of train networks, cycling as a lifestyle, and walking even as a better lifestyle for the so many benefits that it's also has in terms of for our health as well. Then the third one is improve. That is any operation that reduces the emissions of both greenhouse gases, or any form of local pollutants of vehicles or of the current transport system. Any operation that seeks to improve it or that seeks to reduce it is highly encouraged within the clean transport activities. So we'll dive into the core indicators for clean transport projects, which has to start from procurement itself, deployment of clean transportation as a modal shift. Any operation that moves people in a more sustainable and less polluting means of transportation is being encouraged in the procurement at the procurement stage. That's one of the core indicators. And also deployment of clean, low emissions transportation. That's any operation that reduces greenhouse gas emissions or any air pollutants per unit of service that is provided through fuel switch, from one fuel type to another, or from one technology to another, which we call the technology switch, taking into account fuel production and electricity generation, including having projections about changes that could happen. This is another key indicator for clean transport projects. Then for another core indicator is the construction of clean transport infrastructure. Construction, extension, or improvement to core sustainable transport infrastructure is one of the core indicators. It could be, for instance, constructing or electrifying a train track. It could be clean utility connections in ports. It could be construction of bicycle lanes. I'll be very, very glad in my home country, Nigeria, if we can start constructing bicycle lanes or bicycle parking, that our youths and even women, men alike, old and young, are encouraged to learn biking or cycling, depending on how it's called in your region. But bicycle lanes, construction and bicycle parking area. I took some pictures the other time. I saw lots of bicycles parked, and the parking system. What's so interesting that you have your lock or a code that you use to lock your bicycle and go into the building. And when you close from work, you just come out and use the same code, unlock your bicycle, and off you go. Or even bicycle sharing. The bicycle may not be yours, but you want to move from one location to the other, and you can share somebody's bicycle by paying a token as small as $1 or less, maybe pence, 50 pence, less than £1, in that manner. So that bicycle sharing scheme is a key indicator for a clean transportation infrastructure. So both governments and private sectors can begin to develop some of these programs that could increase the awareness and interest of different locations, localities, and regions to key into these, and this can be counted as a core indicator indicating success of clean transportation in line with the green bond principles. So another core indicator when it comes to construction of clean transport infrastructure is improvements to auxiliary transport infrastructure, auxiliary sustainable transport infrastructures. This includes stations, terminals, electric vehicles, charging infrastructure. I would have loved to show some videos of some of these charging infrastructures, very impressive infrastructure that I saw. We haven't really done a lot, but there's some small progress that I can see across the continent and even in developed economies, but I like to focus my presentation on the African continent. So we need to have the vehicle charging infrastructure so that electric vehicles can even be shipped to us in Africa and not the petrol that we currently use. So this is a key indicator that progress is made when electric vehicle charging infrastructures are available, in the cities across the continent. And traffic management systems as well is mentioned as part of the construction indicators. And then connected and automated transport technologies, smart mobility systems, and the development and deployment of alternative transport fuels. These are indicators that can be used for benchmarking success or failure, as the case may be. And generally, if we want to have also some additional specific indicators in the scientific terms, we could start measuring the annual greenhouse gas emissions that have been reduced or that have been avoided in, as the case may be. So first, we have to establish a baseline. We have to have a baseline data of what is currently being emitted in a city, in a region, in a state, and then we can now begin to test to see the annual GHG emissions that have been avoided or that have been reduced in a particular period of time. It could be annually, it could be biannually. So this can be a very key indicator to see that sustainable financing or clean transportation is making a headway and there is success. It could also be reduction in air pollutants, that's particulate matter, sulfur oxide, nitrogen oxide, carbon monoxide, or non-methane volatile organic compounds, including the VOCs as well. So we could have, like I said earlier, a benchmark, a baseline rather, established, data available, and then we begin to measure the reduction over a period of time. This will be a very, very good, encouraging rather, indicators once we see some progress in that direction. So other sustainability indicators in the clean transportation sector could also be number of clean vehicles deployed. How many electric vehicles are in Kenya, for instance, or Tanzania, or Nigeria, or Ethiopia? How many clean vehicles do we have? And first, do we have the record? And then second, do we constantly check the increment in this? These are indicators, and this will be encouraging for the financing processes and even the checking of progress or none of it at all. And then estimated reduction in fuel consumption. Is there an estimated reduction in fuel consumption? Yes, no? That's an indicator. That's an indicator. So there's so many other indicators. I will share this document with us because of time. And I will just want to stop here for the clean transportation core indicators, take some questions, and then we can now answer those questions and wait to meet you again in another presentation that has to do with the sustainable financing using the green bond principle. Thank you very much.